What's going on, everybody? This is the newest, latest, and greatest episode of the best little known podcast in the world, the Battle Bros podcast. Myself, I'm Mac. This is my co host and brother, Alamo. Welcome to the show. If you've
Hello.
been with us before, you may have noticed something a little bit different. Yes, Alamo is clean shaven for a change. Yes, I have a mop top full of hair. But more importantly, we do have a new logo that we're working on. So that is
Hell
a little bit
yes.
feet. So it's not anything you saw by accident. We're not, we're just trying to, keep things fresh and keep them, interesting and all that good stuff. So
Our
how
production value has gone up, folks.
it's like a cheesy tagline. Terrible. Hopefully everybody had a good week. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into things here in a little bit. If you haven't been on our show before, Alamo and I have known each other since high school. We kind of just knew that we were going to be friends, and we were a couple asshats way back when, and we still are to this day. So we have a podcast.
Freaking do it.
We talk about military and veteran and first responder related topics. But it's not just limited to that group of that sub that those three groups.
Subgenre.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. We're not just limited to those three groups, societal groups. If you feel like you might learn something in the message, hey, go for it. If not, okay, cool. Maybe you find something, hear something funny.
Yes,
Like
indeed.
talking about like we built walls. You got tired of shit about these freaking wieners, man. Because we always missed that from a couple of episodes back. Then,
Good times, man. Hell yeah, good times.
There is no hashtag no to Wienergate 2025. So
You choking yourself over there?
a little bit.
It's okay. It happens.
If you caught our last show last week, we did episode 102, and we called it Courage. We talked about what that meant, what it is, why it's important, all that good stuff. So,
yes.
yeah. So, we're going to cover a little bit of news. I know we're kind of getting right into things a little bit, but, we might have a long conversation. We're trying to save some time for that. So, in the news this week, in the past couple of weeks, there's been a couple of things. A couple of these things are kind of related to the show topic tonight. One of them, not so much, but we'll start with the sad one. Actor and Marine Corps veteran Gene Hackman passed away at 95 years old. Still a lot of unknowns regarding the circumstances of his passing. There's a lot of crap on the internet through TMZ and some of these other gossip sites. Just don't bite into the nonsense. Just wait for the facts to play out as is. But
Yep. Although there are some agency or news agencies saying like, oh yeah, this seems suspicious.
well,
Nobody knows.
listen,
Let's just
if you're a conspiracy theorist, this is a good one to chomp down on and take a bite of, because there's a lot of unknowns already from what they are saying. I don't want to get into that because you can go on the internet and find that easy. I do want to stop and say, what an awesome, like, there's a lot of stories coming out about how awesome of a dude Gene Hackman was, just from actors' point of view and whatnot. They say he was a character actor. I still have yet to this day to see the movie French Connection, and that's probably something that is,
shame on you.
yeah, I know. But I remember seeing him. He played the admiral in Behind Enemy Lines. He played the 2-star Navy admiral in charge of the aircraft carrier.
Sure did.
I think the character's first name was Leslie or something. But it had Gabriel Mock and Owen Wilson in it as two pilots that were doing a recon mission. They get shot down. The backseater, Gabriel Mock's character, gets killed over Bosnia by rebel forces or something, and then Owen Wilson is the pilot. He is trying to survive for his life, gets captured. Hashtag spoiler alert. But the movie's 20 years old, so if you haven't seen it by now, well then, fucking well, I don't know what to tell you. But he was in that. He was also in.
If you guys haven't seen that movie, just wow.
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 Nice. I was like, Why is he talking like Trump? Oh, that's it. Got
If
it. Got
you
it.
got just wow,
You haven't seen French Connection? Wow.
wow.
So good.
Uh,
But yeah, he was also Gene Hackman also played the skipper of USS Alabama in Crimson Tide with Denzel
that's
Washington.
right. Yes,
Another fantastic
forgot
movie.
about that.
A lot of good up and comers in that movie. Viggo Mortensen plays one of the department head officers and whatnot.
Yep.
But a lot of movies he's been in. I didn't realize he was in The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. He played the dad of the he played the daughter's father. The daughter was going to like get engaged to the son of Robin Williams and Nathan Lane's character. And Gene Hackman was like a senator or something, like some kind of politician or some crazy stuff. So they go down to Miami and it's like all the drag lifestyle and all that kind of crazy stuff. So it's like, okay. Regardless, just the fact that he had a prolific career in Hollywood. I mean, you never really saw him in too much of like the tabloids, any of the bullshit. I mean, other than after, post mortem, obviously, with the circumstances behind his death and whatnot.
Yeah.
But regardless, Gene Hackman died in '95, Marine Corps veteran. He was in, I think, Japan and it was somewhere in Southeast Asia. He was like a radio telephone operator, radio operator, something like that. He was in the
Yeah.
Marine Corps for, I believe, 5 years or so. So, yeah, Gene Hackman, to Valhalla, sir. So
God rest you,
there's
sir. God rest
there's
you.
that one. So these next two that we're talking about news wise are gonna kind of be directly related to our topic for tonight. We'll get to that in a little bit. So one of the things that's been going on since the new administration began earlier last month, it is not a good time to be a flag officer. For those of you that don't know what that is, a flag officer, if you're in if you're a general officer for the Marine Corps, for the Army, or what they call a flag officer in any of the naval services, um, when you make the rank of 1 star, so the pay grade of '07, so whether it's a rear admiral lower half or it's a brigadier general, you have a flag that has the appropriate amount of stars on the flag itself. And the flag will be different colors depending on the branch. Army is red. Marine Corps is also red, but it's a little bit different. Naval service, all that kind of stuff. Plus, they also have like different MOSs too. Like if you are the Surgeon General for the Army, it's a maroon colored flag because that's like the medical department. They wear maroon for their branch color and whatnot. But regardless, if you are a flag officer, you're at least an '07, so a 1 star of whatever appropriate branch you're in. So in the past, since the administration has began, there have been a number of high-profile dismissals by the administration. To include, first and foremost, I believe, was I think the same day that President Trump took office, the commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Linda Fagan, who was the first female 4 star admiral in the Coast Guard and the first female to head a service branch, was fired and dismissed. Along with later on the CNO, the Chief of Naval Operations, um, I forget what her name was. I think it was Franchetti, Admiral Franchetti, I believe.
That sounds
Um,
familiar.
yeah, I think Lisa Franchetti, I think it was what her name was. And then
Yeah.
also not just that, but the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Air Force General C.Q. Brown, were all um, released, relieved,
Canned.
and canned, and axed,
Yep.
and sacked, whatever the hell you want to say. So it's not exactly a good time to be a 4 star flag officer. Just saying. So they are in the process of bringing in folks. And again, I'm not trying to say this is starting political nonsense, just reporting on the news a little bit, trying to keep ourselves a little bit current with what's going on, the current affairs in the times. But the idea behind all this, according to statements and press releases from Secretary of Defense and from the administration, is that they're trying to regain the military back to a place of being war fighters for the nation's defense and
War
support.
fighters first, all the other crap second.
Yeah, pretty much. So all that stuff. So there was that. Now so that was kind of the news a little bit. There's also been the dismissal of the top JAG officers from the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force as well.
Yep. That part I heard
So
about too.
that I didn't have that listed in our notes, but that was also
Yeah.
pretty big stuff. So the third and final article I'm going to bring up is kind of the main thing that started tonight's episode. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So I was in line.
Perusing.
I was in line to pick up my daughter from after school practice from something she's got going on, and I was just kind of scrolling through YouTube, and I ran across a couple of different video clips, and it was talking about how now that GWAT has officially closed, and we're going back, and we're kind of Marine Corps is going through what they call their Force 2030 plan, so they're trying to revamp and realign things to where they can approach and be ready to defend against the future threats and potential enemies and whatnot. Like in the last few years, the Marine Corps has gotten rid of all of their tank units, all tank battalions and everything else gone. They're going strictly back to being the light infantry, light naval infantry type thing, type of unit and whatnot. So being able to go from place to place, like island hopping, kind of like they did in the Pacific campaign back in World War II. Something similar to that. They've refocused a lot of their efforts towards the Southeast Asian Pacific area of operations, area of responsibility, so on and so forth. They are, I think, massing Marines in the nation of Australia to kind of just get more focus in that area as well. But
Getting
one
some
of
Marines down there in that penal colony. I mean, continent.
not in a long time, dude. Relax.
Originally.
They're gonna call us colonizers. Watch out.
Originally.
Shut up.
Originally.
Anyway, shut up. Anyway, but so the article was talking about how they're potentially talking about getting rid of MARSOC. Now, what MARSOC is, it's the Marine Special Operations Command contingent under U.S. SOCOM, and so to kind of give a little bit of leeway to what we're talking about for tonight's episode. Tonight's episode is going to be episode 103, entitled "Culture."
Cultura.
We'll get back to that in a minute. So what I found interesting was how there's kind of a little bit of there's a little bit of notoriety, and not necessarily in the best way, for the MARSOC units out there. Marines love being Marines. They're very proud of that heritage, and especially more so with the MARSOC guys. Now, one of the things that kind of brought this up was they were talking about how most soft units wear some type of either Scorpion camo, Cry Precision, the multicam, whatever derivative you know it as or whatnot, that's what they wear. So now that we are no longer in an active wartime, Big Marine Corps has told their units, you guys are only either wearing Digi Woodland, Digi Desert, that's it, kind of thing. So at the time when MARSOC was created, I believe was somewhere around 2008, 2010-ish, I think.
According to a couple of our buddies that are Marines, anyway.
It kind of came out of necessity because they did not have a contingent that was part of use of SOCOM at the time.
Yeah.
So they came out with and stood up the Special Operations Regiment.
I thought Brent covered that when we had him on the show, didn't he? Pretty sure.
That was years ago, dude. That he was in MARSOC, or
basically how MARSOC started. I'm almost positive we've heard this from one of our buddies.
He might have, and I should have went back and checked that out. That's my bad. But anyway, so they kind of were looking to get their piece of the pie, that kind of thing. And one of the restructuring points that's coming up with Force 2030 with the Marine Corps and stuff is they're looking at they have bean counters. They actually did an audit for all of the stuff they're spending money on, and they actually passed the audit, which was like, hey, that's impressive, good for you guys. So when you run a selection for CSOs, this is what they call their MARSOC Raiders, is critical skills operators. CSO is the actual MOS title. The training cycle from start to finish costs about to run a selection runs about $6 or $7 million every time you do that. It gets expensive. So they're talking about that. So they're kind of like, and if you remember previously, we talked about an episode. They're also getting rid of reconnaissance. What is it? It's scout snipers. They don't have scout snipers anymore. They're now just going to be force reconnaissance snipers and whatnot. So the title and like the training that they go through has changed slightly. So you can kind of see how things are starting to shift a little bit here and there. Like we mentioned with that, with getting rid of the tank battalions, they're also incorporating a lot more current cutting edge technology. Like they actually have drone operators inside of an infantry squad, organic infantry company and whatnot.
They're
So
kind of sort of making that transition from wartime to more so well, I can't really say we're in peacetime. We're in stressful times.
well,
Sort
there's
kinda.
definitely some uncertainty. Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
so. But they're also kind of like, so anybody that was in like MARSOC, they're either going to send them back to
Line
like
units.
force reconnaissance type units, or even back to just a regular infantry unit. Because some of the brass higher up don't really care for the whole MARSOC thing because they get to grow beards. It's very unmarine like, where you have to stay clean shaven and all this kind of crap, and you have to wear either one of two patterns. You got the desert digital, you got the woodland digital kind of thing. So it was very much kind of like rubbing the wood against the grain kind of thing. It was like, we don't know what to do with this. Like I said, there was a couple of videos I watched, a couple of different dudes. One guy's a Green Beret who's retired. He kind of talked about it a little bit on his channel and how kind of made some allude, and like not really being out of the military for as long as I have, plus not really knowing that many people in the Marine Corps that were in MARSOC. I had no idea this kind of stuff going on. So I was talking to Alamo, and we kind of discussed culture. So that's where we're at tonight. So with those kind of changes going on, with leadership at the highest levels of the Defense Department, and also with the Marine Corps, kind of there's being some scuttlebutt about MARSOC kind of needs to go away. Some guys don't like it. We can just kind of sunset that out and kind of get these guys back to regular line units. We're going to talk about culture. So what? As we always do, what is culture? Well, hey, I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. So, culture is defined as the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. It's also the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. So, what we were just talking about with the Marine Corps, like there very much is a Marine Corps culture, right? Everybody being called Devil Dog. The colors of the Marine Corps are scarlet and gold. Very much a lot of culture, almost to the point of you could kind of almost say lore, because like when you're on the outside looking in, you're like all this information, like whoa, like I can't hear you. You're muted. Stand by, folks. Still nothing. You touch the button, and I don't hear you no more. I still got nothing. Anyway, you keep trying to like nothing. Make it work. Even if you got to cut out, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, so very much, when you talk about the military and, especially like the Marine Corps, that's a good example. Like they say, you have all these different branches and then you have a cult. There very much is like a cult kind of
I'm back.
mentality with the. There you go. What was it?
I tapped the thing and apparently like it disconnected from this and went to it doesn't matter. I fixed
Okay.
it.
Gotcha. So yes, like we were talking about. So with culture, you have the customs arts. Like one of the customs of you know of the Marine Corps saying Semper Fidelis, Semper Fi, calling each other Devil Dog, Warrior, that kind of stuff. Very much kind of cultural things. So in addition to culture, there's some other terms that we looked up because when we talk about culture, a lot of times you run into these other terms that are similar, although slightly different. So we're going to go over those as well. So some of the other definitions, there's 4 additional definitions that we want. A cultural group within a larger culture, often having beliefs or interests at variance with those of the larger group. Okay. Good example of that being you have the culture of the military. Well, inside of that, you have the subculture for each of the service branches. So you have the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, Space Force, all that kind of stuff. Those could all be considered a subculture because they're all going to have their own kind of different ideas, ideologies, ways of doing things, so on and so forth, right? Going forward, we also, and this one's been popular for a long time, counterculture, a way of life and set of attitudes opposed to or at variance with prevailing social norm. That was pretty popular during like Vietnam. You had the counterculture that really kind of came out, people that were against the war,
Or
peace
Gen X
protests,
during the 90s.
or Gen X during the 90s. That's probably a fair statement.
Mm-hmm.
Your statement. Yep. And this one we've heard kind of recently too, in the last few years, cancel culture, a cultural phenomenon in which an individual thought to have acted or spoken in an unacceptable manner is ostracized, boycotted, shunned, fired, or assaulted, often aided by the social media. Hey, I don't like what you're about, so I'm going to get you canceled because
Basically,
my culture is more important than yours. And I get the idea behind it. I don't always approve of the methods, but listen, it's okay to disagree with what people are talking about. The societal culture that we have nowadays is one of very much of having a different point of view.
Right.
And that's all fine and great because if you're,
at least that's how it should be. That's how it should be.
Yeah. That's how it should be.
That's how it should be. I don't think it really, especially lately, I don't think it's really been operating as such. At least from my observation, it hasn't really been operating as such. There's been a lot of individuals who have been shut up, shut down, shadow banned from certain platforms and all types of stuff. It gets pretty, wonky when you start really looking into it, but it's kind of stupid in my personal opinion. I don't think anybody should be canceled for sure. I think the fundamentals of our Constitution and the groundwork for how it works prevents things like that from it prevents things like that from happening on, I mean, really anywhere. And if these platforms, including said one we are on, are actually doing their jobs, they will actually allow things, even if it doesn't sound right to them, because, now I get there's certain things that, you want to monitor and kind of, whatever. But for the most part, if someone says, well, and this is a really stupid example, but it's like, I like dogs. And if you don't like dogs, you're an idiot. And then you cancel them for it and they get shadow banned and all this other crap. That's the dumbest reason to freaking take somebody off of a platform.
I think it's a very safe thing to say that in the last, I would say, going back maybe 10 years, like we kind of forgot the words of Voltaire. I do not agree with what you say, but I defend to the death the right to say it.
Yeah.
And like I saw that in high school in Mr. Burnham's classroom and shit. And like it really kind of stuck with me. But like, listen, it's okay to disagree, but just because
Absolutely
you disagree doesn't mean you need to go out of your way to make somebody else like disappear. It's like I don't, and okay, so it's probably a safe thing to say. Side note, it's probably a safe thing to say like this episode tonight, and we might possibly, we'll see how it goes. We're kind of doing this one a little bit more by the seat of our pants because we didn't want to bore a bunch of people with a bunch of articles and stuff. We kind of want to have
cliff notes. We got cliff notes.
We got cliff notes, and we kind of want to have an organic conversation about it. and just kind of see where things go.
Huey.
So there's a possibility we might carry this over into next week. If we get into the 2 hour mark, we're like, well, we haven't really got anywhere, so let's just carry it over next week. That might happen. So there's that. But what I was gonna say though is like, it's kind of to the point where like I don't understand. Okay, let me find a way it doesn't sound so controversial. I can understand like looking at something from a certain point of view, but like to the point of being like, I don't like this, I'm going to cancel it. Or like looking back at something like established historical events, documents, people, and just going, yeah, that's crap. I'm going to get rid of it. Act like it never existed. It's like, I don't understand the mindset behind that because I try to look at things from both sides as we were taught by the
Correct.
late great Mr. Burnham. He always, showed you both sides of the argument and let you kind of make you and formulate your own opinion. Just like newscasters back in the day, they reported the facts. They gave you enough information to know what was going on, but didn't lean
I think
left,
that's
didn't lean right.
called the Socratic method, my friend.
I believe it is. So the cancel culture thing, like, there's a lot of people, like, especially at its height, during COVID and when all the hysteria was going wild, I probably would have fallen into a group that was going to get canceled. I'm a white male who's, military, veteran, blue eyes and stuff. So I got a lot of shit going against me. It's like, all right, whatever. So,
and to a certain subset of our culture, blue eyes means Sikari! Did I say that? Just saying.
Moving along, because Ding Dong over here freaking showed his wiener and fucking messing the whole goddamn thing up.
It's the way they think, but
not really. But I'm just saying. Like, fucking,
yeah, we can say Yahtzee. We can't say the other word, but we can say Yahtzee because
the Yahtzee party.
The Yahtzee parties, yeah,
Jesus.
Because everybody is a Yahtzee who doesn't think like them, but I don't know. I'm not going to go there.
So we have subculture, we have counterculture, we have cancel culture. Now, another term that you hear associated with culture that's been popular for a while. That's not popular, but at least been in current events and in kind of contemporary type conversations is the term cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is defined as the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas, etc., of one people or society by members of another and typically more dominant people or society. Okay, what can you think of as a good example of that, Alamo?
I mean, sadly, the only thing that's really coming to mind is honestly something I can't mention on here without us getting flagged for it. Let's just say it has to do with a face.
Oh,
and dressing up in a certain way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite honestly, like I think that right there is definitely a part of that. Of course, they used to do nonsense like that back in the day, and it was just like it was pretty bad. You know what I mean?
Let me ask a semi-goofy question out loud for the sake of the conversation. How do you have cultural appropriation in a society, in a country that is defined by many people as a melting pot of different customs and traditions and heritages, all just coming together and blending and mixing and all that kind of stuff? How do you have that kind of conversation about that? I mean, it obviously says inappropriately. How was that worded? It was inappropriate, unacknowledged, or inappropriate. So, like we talk about like my heritage, like my daughter is half Irish. She's half Puerto Rican from myself and her mother. With my family, we have, so many different types of heritage in there. It's like, how do you acknowledge that and all that stuff? But what constitutes cultural appropriation? Like when you, I just, again, maybe I'm ignorant, maybe I'm just uninformed, but I I find that kind of hard to justify
I don't
when you're
know.
talking about a country where everything is a melting pot. We have so much stuff coming in. Go ahead. What you were gonna say?
Well, no, I was gonna say, like, I don't know, man. I think with the whole cultural appropriation thing, I think for it to not really feel like cultural appropriation, I mean, it really has to come off like respectfully, and you know, like I see a lot of that kind of stuff through the lens of humor. Like if it's done through the lens of humor in a way that it's like, you know, I don't know, a lot of a lot of society today has gotten really sensitive. And I say that to mean like people are okay. Let me back up a couple seconds. So I feel like after 9/11, and this is where I think the culture kind of shifted. Like after 9/11, there was this like breaking of the glass for a lot of American culture. We, you know, saw ourselves as vulnerable for the first time in a long
What do you
time.
mean by that comment of breaking of the glass? Like break in case of emergency break glass, or
I would
everything was
say
safe under glass and then that safety got shattered?
think of it as we were looking into what we thought was a mirror, but it was a freaking spyglass. And
Oh, okay.
when 9/11 occurred, it kind of shattered all of what we knew. We were inside our little American bubble. The outside world was the outside world. That was their problems, not ours. That was, their little war going on over there, not ours. We had all these things going on. Then all of a sudden, boom, 9/11 happens, right? As Americans, from that point forward, we become aware of so many different things, so many different cultures everywhere, everywhere. It all of a sudden starts overwhelming us like, holy freaking crap, we are a part of a bigger world, and we're part of a bigger world that hates us. Well, it doesn't take long for people in the United States, on the United States side of things. And I'm thinking about this from like the psychological aspect. So stay with me here. Um,
Right with you, bud.
it doesn't take long for, you know, Americans over time to kind of start falling into this like because you're constantly stressed out, you're constantly thinking like, oh, when's the next attack going to be, or who are these people down the street, are they good people, it's almost as like
A little
your
bit of
mind,
hysteria.
a little bit of hysteria, your mind is constantly and consistently creating boogeymen, boogeyman until as an individual you're creating that boogeyman that, in all honesty, let's just be honest, like you never would have thought of before,
But
right?
like the psychosis of all of it is like perpetuating the boogeyman.
Correct.
Okay.
And you know, there's and it's funny too because there's a lot of studies on this kind of stuff, how hysteria kind of spreads, and what you'll notice is like people will start to create enemies. They will start to create freaking, you know,
Did it cut out again? Stand by, folks. Live show. And we'll be back shortly. Hang on. And
am I here? Am I there?
yeah, here we go. What do you keep touching? Make you.
I don't know. I guess I hit the cord again. But anyway, like I was saying, where did I leave off again?
Stop hitting the friggin' cord, dude.
I didn't mean to. I'm gonna move it further up here. So,
hey, there's an idea. Continue.
But yeah, so essentially we're creating
of boogeyman.
We're with the perpetuation of boogeyman.
You can't see it, but he did it again, and he just said, "What the fuck?" Something's going on with his microphone. Holy crap! Yep. Live show, folks. It's been a week.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, so again, and I didn't even touch it that time. I'm gonna be honest.
Maybe it's a connection somewhere, but whatever.
So I feel like the government's fucking with my shit. Anyway, so conspiracy theory. So, all right, so right,
that's awesome.
Focus. So
yeah, me focus. Because you're the one fucking up the flow.
The boogeyman, Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, and then all of a sudden, like within that same year, like 2 years later, Muslim, like every Muslim in America is they're part of Al Qaeda. Then all of a sudden it shifted to, oh well, the Republicans are this and this and this, and the Democrats are this and this and this, and like,
yeah,
I see
what you're talking about.
The evolution of how all of this shite kind of just we've created from those years to now boogeyman upon boogeyman upon boogeyman upon boogeyman upon boogeyman until hello, here we are. And all that fear, all that paranoia, all that crap,
hysteria
that we've felt back then, right? Because if you look at the way things have shifted over the last 10 years, really all of it started like literally then. So really this is like kind of like a 20-year problem. Like we've fed that kind of hysteria, that kind of paranoia, to the younger generations. We fed it to our kids, we fed it to ourselves, we fed it to our siblings. You know what I mean? And I'm not necessarily saying me, but but
you're talking in generalities. I got you.
I'm talking in generalities, but that's how it shifts. It starts from one infinitesimal point, and then it goes like the Big Bang, just kind of spreading out.
Or like all the fibers in the Marvel universe were just
right. Think of it, yeah. You could think all the infinite probabilities, and before you get to where we are right here, and it all starts with one psychological trauma. Everybody starts throwing a trauma on top of a trauma. Old freaking blood turns into new blood. Before we know it, we're going at each other's throats because of shit. Well, we don't even know why we're fighting anymore.
And to quote Bill Murray from Ghostbusters 2, cats and dogs sleeping together, mass hysteria.
Correct. And here we are. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like let
me interject real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, and you bring up a good point about, creating your own boogeyman stuff, because when we talked about 9/11 at the 20-year anniversary, in our first season, we talked about, the aftermath of that kind of stuff. And look at how many times we had people just because they were of a, Muslim type faith. Like, look at what happened to all the Sikhs out there. The Sikhs are a completely different culture, and, not what you would consider like, Muslim or, somebody that reads the Quran or something. It's a different faith altogether. But a couple of these people got tied up into this, and a couple of them were killed because
they sure did. They sure did.
It's not the same thing. It's like,
no.
Don't be just ignorant. Understand what's going on. Like, these are Americans just like the rest of us and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean,
I think Marvin Gaye said it best when he said, "What's going on? What's going on?"
Okay, you checked that box. You sang for a show. We're good.
Just saying.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at culture, I mean, and that's something that's kind of interesting. Like when you have like anthropologists, studying cultures of like ancient civilizations, at least you know like you've got a set amount of time. If you're an anthropologist that's like studying current affairs and the change, you're constantly having to keep up on what's new, what's abreast of the culture and society going on, and it's like you're just always like having to just pay attention to what's going on around you. So it's like I don't know if I could do that job. It's like look at us, So to kind of swing this back around to a little bit more of our wheelhouse, we look at the culture of the military. So that fateful morning that he was just talking about, 9/11, we went from being a peacetime military to a wartime military.
In a matter of like 24 hours.
24 hours, yeah. So, I mean, I remember watching a documentary where they actually had guys that were going through Parris Island, and they were filming, and it was their class that was there when 9/11 happened. They said, for the guys that are from New York, you might want to pay attention to this. And like they had, I mean, because you can see here, they had pulled these guys off the side, like this recruit is mad, this recruit is pissed off, this recruit is ready to get some revenge and all that stuff. And that's how I remember it was Marine Corps. You said they spoke of themselves in the third person. It's like, oh yeah. But I mean, you think about how much the culture of the military, we go from like, okay, peacetime, shine your boots, start your uniforms, to holy shit, draw your gear, make sure you got enough rations, pay attention at the fucking rifle range. You're gonna need this shit. All right. Yep. One of the drill sergeants that we had, I went through in 03, and he was one of the few guys that had gotten had a CIB on his BDUs. He actually went over to Afghanistan with 10th Mountain, like right after everything first started. He was Staff Sergeant Rodriguez. He ended up getting promoted to Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, but he went over with 10th Mountain and had a CIB. He's like, you guys might want to pay attention to this shit because it's going to get real fucking real soon, kind of thing. So we go from that, kind of culture shift of military, of peacetime military, to the war machine that would steamroll through the country for the next 20-something years, where, we end up losing 4,000 guys and shit. But so we have, that kind of military culture. But, like we were talking earlier, to kind of pull back the scope of things, a little bit more of a broader scope. You're talking about the culture of the military compared to civilian life. So what does that look like? You always hear us talking, like, especially Army guys, dude. We like our acronyms.
YAR.
You gotta go to the DFAG. What's your PCS date? What's your ETS date? Where you PCS into? Yada yada yada. Everybody's got their lingo. Everybody's got their kind of culture and their way of doing things. But also, in between the branches, that is. But also, we're gonna kind of zoom back in a little bit and just focus on just the Army. So, the culture of the Army is definitely one thing, but then you also have the different job descriptions. So infantry kind of has their own culture of doing things. We're very vulgar, we're very brash, we're very like, it's gonna suck, but hey, it's all gonna suck, and we're all gonna be here together. So
it's gonna suck, but it'll be fun.
Exactly. Compared to somebody like in the artillery career field or military police or whatnot. So you got all this shit going on where things have changed and this, that, and the other. And then now the jobs are also kind of have their own little culture / group identity kind of thing. So, so that brings me back. I was going to ask a question. So we talked about cultural appropriation. So do you think so that obviously is synonymous with being like an inappropriate or unacknowledged way to gather certain aspects or details of a certain culture? But what about when you willingly join and they're accepting of it? So is that like cultural acquisition? Like when somebody joins the Army, hey, you're now a soldier. Or you join the Marine Corps, you now have earned, you get your EGA, man. You have earned the title of Marine for the rest of your life. So that's not really appropriation because there's mutual agreement. We're going to train you to go to be the best of us or whatnot. So we're going to give you this identity and give you this sort of belonging and, a home to belong to. So it's not anything unacknowledged or inappropriate. It's like pretty mutual on both parts. You're signing up to fight for us. We're going to train you how to do it the best way we know how.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a little bit more, of an appropriate terminology. I'm not really saying that it is, but just I think of it kind of like cultural acquisition, where you're knowingly joining and becoming a member of this society, or of this, the culture of the army with the subculture of, being infantry, and then the subculture of like Bang Bangs versus Charlies, 11 Charlie versus 11, or 11 Bang Bang versus 11 Charlie. So, and for the guys that are a lot older, or maybe it might have been in our time, you had hotels and mics too. So, at one point we had 4 MOSs. We had hotels, which were heavy weapons, and we had mics, which are mechanized. So they kind of just got rid of those. But that's another good example too. Depending on how the culture of the army changes and things change to drive, the world and the job qualifications, and the mission statement and the skill set changes, things change. Like, how many different times have there, they've added MOSs, they've taken them away. They went from having 3 MOSs, all kind of being funneled down into one, where it's all just all this stuff together instead of going like that. It's just
kind of like how the 11 series ended up being lumped into one damn series. I think Army did that on purpose because we had so many people fucking joining. Honestly, that's my honest opinion.
What are you talking about?
When they just consolidated all the infantry freaking MOSs into like kind of like just 11 series. That was done out of convenience, pure convenience. They just wanted to make sure they was like, all right, gentlemen, you're either 11B, 11C. Or any questions? Good, because I wouldn't acknowledge them if you had them.
Okay, are you? Is this something you just thought of? Like you're doing a bit in your head right now?
Yep.
Patton didn't say that. All right, freaking Bradley didn't say that. So shut up. Anyway, but no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, though. But like, even in like but in the Marine Corps too, like you have anything 0300 is infantry, and then from there you just learn your specific job. But you still have that culture of like the infantry culture. Like you're gonna be out in the field, you're gonna be wet, you're gonna be cold, you're gonna be tired, and it's gonna suck.
Yep. In
one way or another. So going down from that too, you also have the big culture clash of the different service components. So like active duty, reserves, National Guard. So like you've got guys that might have been on active duty but never deployed during the Gulf War or shortly after that. And you got guys like in the GWAT generation that went over. And it just because we're National Guardsmen or whatnot, we still get that freaking haterade. Everybody wants to dump haterade over our head and be like, "Oh, you're still a nasty girl." It's like, yeah, but I fucking deployed, dude.
You get the stigma.
I got a CIB, not me specifically, but just saying in general. Like you got a National Guardsman who's an infantry battalion, goes over, gets Purple Heart, gets a Bronze Star, gets CIB, and you got guys that are on active duty that just aren't going to acknowledge it because, like, yeah, you're still a nasty girl, bitch.
And there's plenty of them who have gotten CIBs.
And it's just ridiculous, man. It's like, why is there such nonsense out there? It's like just fucking dumb.
Freaking hooey.
I don't understand it, but you're not gonna understand everybody. So there's that. And then also you have the culture clash of combat vets versus non-combat vets. You guys get deployed, you got the culture of guys that actually went outside the wire over in country when they went down range, go outside the wire, did some hula shit, cool stuff, and you got guys that were literally just, what do you call them, fobbits? Yeah, they're just people that
sitting on the fob.
Sitting on the fob, don't ever go outside the wire unless you're going home on leave or that kind of shit and coming back. Other than that, they're happy on base, not having to do anything like that. You got guys doing like, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, like guys doing more combat support, combat service support, admin, fucking commo shit, whatever the case may be. S groups. Pretty much. So
yeah. S1, S2.
The S shops, yep. And there was one other point. So, and that's just, again, for the military, but you also, like, when we talk about, like, outside the military, obviously you take that culture with you. You take that culture of, hey, I was in an Army infantry unit. I'm an 11 series soldier. I'm taking that mindset with me. You take that culture and that kind of seeps into your core beliefs and values and your psyche and all that other kind of stuff, and it kind of becomes part of who you are. That culture of that. If you look at I'm sure you could probably look at the generations of like, you know, GWAT versus Desert Storm versus Vietnam versus Korea. There's going to be some very different cultural kind of norms and you know what's what I'm looking for, like the cultural norms and the cultural norms of those different time periods and whatnot are going to kind of not necessarily, they're going to be for the most part similar, but there might be some variances here and there where things are kind of don't always go together. It might just go and kind of branch off and do whatever. So I mean, hell, it was all the guys from that I talked to like after GWAT kicked off and I had gone over and did my tour. Hell, we were working together at the gun shop, dude. We had a guy came up and struck up a conversation with him. He's like, "Yeah, we just want to make sure you guys don't get treated like us because that culture of brotherhood of veterans, despite being of completely different generations, it's like that doesn't matter. It's like I might have been in Vietnam, you might have been in Afghanistan, but hey, we both fucking deployed, we both did our job, we're both there, and all that kind of stuff."
We
Now,
both did it.
yeah. Now, let me ask you this question, Alma, for the sake of conversation on our topic tonight. Do you think that it is you kind of get culture loss when you leave the military? Like you lose that sense of culture to a certain aspect? Is it as
I would
bad as people think it
say,
is? Is it not? Is it not really a thing? Is it non-existent? Is it a non-starter?
well, coming from
What do
the
you?
active duty side, I would say absolutely you do.
Okay,
eh,
so hold on. Let me
y-
bring up
y-
that point. So yes, you talked about going from active duty. You kind of didn't. It was a little. There's some time that had passed from when you left active duty to going and jumping into the reserve side of things. Okay, going from active duty to reserve, there was. Would you say there's a culture shift, a different paradigm shift and
oh,
cultural
huge,
differences between the two?
huge.
How so?
Well, they expect you to do a little bit more on your own, for sure on that side.
On the reserve side?
On the reserve side, yeah. Whereas on on the active side, it's mainly like go do this, go this, go do this, go do this. Did I tell you to do that? No, I didn't tell you to go do that. Go do this. Um, as opposed to, hey, did you get that paperwork done yet? You didn't tell me to, Sergeant. Oh, well, go get that paperwork done. And it's like, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done, and they're just going to completely forget about it because you're only there once, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year.
So
So,
what about the cultural shift and differences between changing your job from a 11 Bravo or 11 Charlie to, was it a 95 Bravo or was it a
back
31 Bravo?
then, back then it was, I think, if I remember correctly, I thought it was 13. I thought it was 13 Bravo.
31.
Is it 31?
Use 13's field artillery.
Oh, that's right. 13 is failure. Yeah, so 31 Bravo. Excuse me. Yeah, 31 Bravo would have been. So honestly, dude, I mean, it's all really similar. I mean, there was definitely more like looking into like UCMJ and how that works. But I mean, soldiering is soldiering, to be completely honest, for the most part. I mean,
There's some differences, but it's not as bad as it could be
yeah,
perpetuated to be.
yeah. With the MP stuff, I mean, it was, you're still gonna soldier, you're still gonna do all that kind of cool guy stuff and all that stuff. Your primary is not your rifle. Your secondary is your rifle. Your primary is always going to be your pistol.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. It's the reverse on the MP side. You still qualify
Well,
with both.
you should qualify with both, but is it now? Are you talking from the standpoint of like Garrison MP versus combat MP duty?
To a certain degree, yes.
Because like, if you're doing
Obviously,
garrison duty work, and you're just going to be in a squad car rolling around installation, running checkpoints, doing traffic duty, writing potential tickets, that kind of thing. You're wearing a regular law enforcement style duty vest, that kind of stuff. But
right.
I would think combat wise, your rifle's still going to be your primary.
Yeah, in combat, yeah, it
Okay.
changes obviously in combat.
Okay. I
Um,
wasn't. I just want to clarify.
yeah, no, but yeah, like that was definitely new. But like I said, I mean, for the most part, it was just learning more UCMJ stuff. You know what I mean? Because you'd be there learning how to do all that crap. I didn't get a chance to go do the full training because obviously, like I said before, training sergeant got my ETS mixed up and therefore would not let me go to retraining unless I reenlisted until he found out that I wasn't getting out as early as he thought I was. So there was that. Yeah, go figure. That was another thing. It was like, dude, like, how do you not know this? But
You had one job, Sarge. One job.
one job, Big Sarge. But it is what it is. Things happen for a reason.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
I agree.
it's all good.
So then, let me ask you, kind of going along with that, how was the culture change for you personally, going from being MP to being a civilian cop for a little while? How
To
was
be
the culture change of that?
that was definitely obviously a change because with the military, you know, you're going from. I mean, obviously they're both service related in turn like they're similar in the service side where you're serving your community at large, right? However, the capacities in which you serve are quite a bit different. Whereas with the military, arrest power exist, but they're far more. Let's just say you're more like detaining. It's more detainment than anything else, as opposed to once you slap them freaking cuffs on somebody. Oh, your rights are taken away until you're proven innocent or otherwise. Or I said that wrong. Innocent till proven guilty, but regardless,
I think I know what you meant. So
you get what I mean. It's I would say the culture in terms of how how you relate to each other is actually fairly similar. You know what I mean? You're gonna be with you're gonna be with your squad pretty much most of the time as opposed to being home. So you'll get to know those people, really, really well, just like you would just like you would your squad or your platoon while you're in the military. But I would say if you think the military is political, dude, law enforcement is way more political.
yeah,
Like, way more political. And oftentimes, not in a good way, because like a lot of things could get in the way of a lot of things. Let's just put it that way.
I
Even
got you.
everything from completing simple reports to other types of stuff. It gets real deep. Like I don't remember a lot of it because again, it's like at this point it's years ago now. But it's definitely very heavily leaning in the direction of like it gets fairly up there on the political side.
And then my final my final question is, Talk about the cultural shift when you left the police department, going back to being a civilian. Was that an easy cultural like change, or was it difficult for some reasons and whatnot?
It wasn't easy at all. It was not. Especially because you're.
And we're having ongoing persistent technology issues, folks. Bear with us. There he goes.
I did not touch it once
I know.
again.
I know.
I'm gonna have to get a new mic, but it's all good.
You have some kind of gremlin or something in there, but that's fine.
For sure. Like something's messing with it. I don't know
But
what
you
it
were
is.
but you were saying.
But yeah, man, like just yeah, like as you know, like it was difficult, man. It was mainly because I think at the time because I wanted it so bad, and I was just like, you know what I mean? Like this, it sucked because I was busy transitioning my mind into I'm going to be here to defend the community at large, at the or at least protect the community at large, and then all of a sudden I was not in a position where I could do that, and it was like shit. Well, cool. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain to a certain degree, only because you think about it and you're like, huh, like like how did I just go from doing this to just regular Joe Schmo again? You know what I mean? So I would say culturally speaking, it was like it was almost like losing a tribe again. Um, and then I had to readapt to being Joe Schmo civilian again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it was rough, man. It was rough.
So what kind of helped you make through those cultural changes? Going from and when I say cultural changes, I'm talking about going from active duty to reserves, being infantry to being an MP, and then going from police officer, LEO to civilian. What kind of helped you get through all those cultural changes?
Honestly, she hated doing it, but it was definitely my wife was a big part of that.
Yeah.
Um,
All three
she
times?
she kept me grounded quite a bit through a lot of it. She'll tell you that dealing with me was like dealing with me was like dealing with a how do I say this dealing with a shitty booty. Couldn't keep it clean. Um, but it was but she dealt with it the best she could.
Nice. That's a great
She
analogy.
she dealt with it the best she
Just
could.
fresh nappy, and all of a sudden it's freaking dirty again.
She 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 kept me honest, and she kept me humble by making me think. Sometimes a little bit more heavy handed than expected, but she did so. But she did so the best she could.
So I guess you could say, folks, listening to all the stuff we talked about tonight, whether we have a part two on this or not, I feel like we could end it right here. We could potentially go a little bit further in depth next week. We don't know if we're going to do that yet. But it's important to not forget your cultural heritage. And that could come from a lot of different places. I mean, it comes from like the culture of our families, Alamo coming up in a Puerto Rican household versus, my family's culture of just kind of blue collar, kind of background kind of thing. And then both of us joining the military. and the culture of our jobs at the time, the culture of the world at the time, understanding the cultural norm. That was a big thing too, is just understanding the cultural norms of like going over to our respective countries. Afghanistan, certain things there, Iraq, certain things there for you and whatnot. And it's not a hard thing to say that a lot of that stuff is still with me in one point or another. So getting out of the military and then going into other things and just taking all that culture and never losing that's very important. You did your time, you served, and even if something goes away where like we don't ever have a war ever again, okay, cool, you have that culture of having served. If they get rid of MARSOC or um, you know leaders change, leadership changes, all that kind of stuff, the culture is still there, and it kind of bleeds over a little bit from one regime to the next, or one administration or one leadership team. Like when you have a new battalion commander and sergeant major come into a new unit, and they're just like, "Hey, what's going on here?" So,
good morning, Sergeant Major.
How do you know what kind of goddamn day it is?
There it is.
Beautiful morning, sergeant major.
Well, you fucking weatherman now.
Sam Elliott's the best, dude. But that's a great example too. I mean, taking the cavalry mindset, paratroopers, and bringing it to the air cav and air mobile and all that kind of stuff. That's a great example of just bringing that culture changes. A culture of good leadership to like being efficient and effective in combat, and like getting the enemy to go, "Oh shit, okay, these are the guys know what they're doing." So this is probably a good point for us to kind of put a pin in it. We can always come back and revisit this at another time. Whether it's next week or not, we don't know. It kind of just depends. It's funny, there's been plenty of times where, the realities of having a podcast and doing a podcast, you never ever know where the inspiration or motivation to have a conversation on any specific topic comes from. Like we have a list. It's like almost a full document long of just stuff that we could talk about at one point in time. But there's a lot of times, and there's been several that I can remember, like with this episode here, where we just have something, we see something in society, or we hear a news clip and go, "Hey, this would be a good thing to talk about. Let's discuss this and kind of delve into this a little bit." So it's funny, it's very crazy and very fluid how that happens sometimes. You're sitting here thinking you're gonna talk about one thing, and it's like, all right, we're gonna put it on the back burner, we're gonna talk about this, and you're just like, yeah, okay, I totally get that. Absolutely. So, and that's kind of what happened this week. So, but this has been our chat on culture. Not sure whether or not we're going to continue it next week, or we just maybe put a pin in it for now and come back another time. But hope you enjoy the content. We're going to start closing out the show like we always do. We try to stay to about the hour time frame, because I'm sure after an hour they're like, okay, the bearded guy needs to shut up. We're trying to hear him talk. That big ass head, he scares shit. The other guy, he's all right, good looking, but whatever. So, as you mentioned earlier, if you're new to the show, Alamo and I have been friends for going on 20, almost 24 years now. Stayed friends in high school. Very crazy, I know. Friends in high school. My last year, his first year. Outside of high school, we stayed friends, stayed in contact, and then ended up working together. We had this guy, a coworker that worked with us named John. John was a dude who was a Marine Corps vet, funny guy, loved to laugh, all that kind of shit. Just an absolute hilarious, funny motherfucker, right? Just, we did so much dumb shit. I'm surprised that we didn't get fired. For sure, right? So, but John just kind of, like, the three of us kind of just clicked very well. We all kind of worked in one department. And, work wasn't work. It was fun. We had fun. We did our jobs. We went above and beyond, but we had fun doing it. It was great. So after a while, we all kind of left, went our own ways. Alamo and I kind of stayed in contact a little bit, but we also kind of I ended up working an event for his lovely wife Tisha. She has a channel called Flipside Mentorship. If you want to see some awesome stuff going on, I mean, obviously, hopefully our show, you would consider that. But if you want to see some really awesome stuff, check out flipsidementorship.com. fantastic. We just did an event last weekend. She did an event called Painting with My VIP, and it was all the way out where you guys live in Deltona. I live in Tampa, so that's kind of a little bit far to get out there that early in the morning. So my daughter and I participated, and we did. It's kind of like painting with a twist, except there's no alcohol involved because you're painting with kids. But it's like a very simple, like do this, do this, do this, and everybody paints generally the same picture, but it's going to have their own little subtle things on it. So we ended up painting a gnome, which was great, and it's probably one of the best memories I have with my daughter as of recently. So it was fantastic. So thank you to Tisha. You're awesome.
Those are some fantastic gnomes you guys did too there.
We did. My name is Jerome, the homie Nomi. So he's awesome. You know, my daughter says, "Oh, look, he's just like you, Dad, squatty and gray," and I'm just like,
yeah, kids, so honest.
"Oh, to a fucking fault, dude."
So
Anyway, so I worked an event with Alamo and his wife for her channel Flipside Mentorship, and we kind of got the bug about Alamo's like, dude, we should do something to kind of get back together, hang out a little bit more. Well, a short time after that, we found out that John had unfortunately solved a temporary problem with a permanent solution, and John was no longer with us. So I called Alamo, and I was like, hey, man, did you hear about John? He's like, no, I got to call him for his birthday. I'm like, you can't. He's gone. So at that point, I was like, hey, dude, we were talking about doing, something. Like you talked about doing a podcast. Originally, I was like, I don't know shit about a podcast. And Alamo kind of sold me on it because he was like, hey, man, they put a monkey in outer space. How hard can it be? And I'm just like, facts. So I told him, I said, dude, that's my aha moment. I'm like, that was kind of like the catalyst. I was like, I'm in. Let's do this. So in the process of kind of figuring out what our mission and our vision was going to be and all that stuff, we came up with the name, the Battle Bros Podcast, and we also came out with the Bros Code. Now, what the Bros Code is this 4 easy tenets that can kind of help keep you in a good headspace, keep you around, make sure that you're able to keep fighting the good fight, all those kind of things, because we don't want
a good fight.
How did I know you were going to do the Irish brogue on that just because I said that? I know you too well. It's scary. But this is the mission that we're trying to solve right here is 22 veterans a day on average commit suicide. And I've heard reports that that's as high as 40 now, which is just an absolute travesty. But even though that's a lot of people, just one of them that you personally can put a name and a face to sucks. It really does.
Yeah.
So they're all important. They're all people that should still be here, that should have reached out or have somebody reach out to them and give them help they needed. But we can't save them. We can't go back. Same thing with John. If we could have John back without us having to do this show, I would happily take that trade off. Unfortunately, it's just not going to work that way because he is no longer with us, unfortunately. So we do this in honor of him and anybody else that has gone that route. Okay, so with the Bros Code, it's easy to remember. You just got to remember the letters BROS, and that's going to help you remember the Bros Code. Okay, so letter B, be tenacious. No matter what you do in life, do it to the utmost and fullest of your ability. Do it with tenacity. Do it with vigor. Do it with gusto. If you're going to go out and do something, dedicate yourself to that job and be the best you can absolutely do at it. Whether it's being a parent, being a teacher, being a therapist, being a cop, a first responder, a soldier, a service member, being a mentor, being a spouse, whatever that means, whatever applies to you, go out and do it to the utmost and the best of your ability. In the words of the eternal Ron Swanson, don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing. There we go. 1. I'm on screen now. There we go. Whole-ass 1 thing. Be tenacious, folks. Step 1. R, refuse to surrender. When you're going through the journey of life, things happen, things come up. I got pretty down in the dumps because of the fact that last year in January, I just finished paying off my car December 31st of the last year, and then got into a car accident with a deer. A deer ran off the side of the road into my vehicle on a full moon. fucking Bambi's dad ran into my goddamn car.
Deer are sometimes just as bad as cats.
Oh my god! Like I'm lucky that I for sure thought the car was going to be scrapped, and I was just like, ugh. But it ended up working out. So that kind of stuff happens. That's why they're called accidents. Okay, refuse to surrender. No matter what happens, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, knock the mud off your stuff, whatever you got to do.
Pick yourself up by them bootstraps.
That too. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Reorient. Freaking shoot your azimuth, and get back on track. Okay. Oh, obliterate your obstacles. When those obstacles do come up, sometimes you have to do your best to get through them. Sometimes it's just as simple as outmaneuvering them. You have a barricade, you just walk around it and continue on. You have to maybe go off the main road, dirt path, through the woods for a ways, get back on the main road on the far side of the obstacle. That happens, whatever the case may be. Sometimes you got to freaking go over or go under, dig under it or climb over it. Sometimes you got to breach a shit with some C4 and Bangalores, or maybe, hey, drive a vehicle through it. Whatever that looks like. Everybody's going to have a different, story. Everybody's going to have a different approach or method to obliterating an obstacle. But obliterate the obstacle and then keep moving, hit the X, and keep moving towards the OBJ. Last and not least, S. Seek out help in a time of need. As we mentioned with our friend John, there's nothing we can do to bring him back, and that's unfortunate. But what we can do is help those that are still here. Help comes in a lot of different forms. It could be as easy as giving somebody the gift of your time and just sitting them and say, hey, you got a problem. I'd be more than happy to hear what you have to say and let you vent about it. Okay. Help comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes it's, having a freaking talk, remembering the good times over a beer. Sometimes it's a hug and, crying. Sometimes it's understanding, like last night, I was just like, hey, I am not in a good headspace tonight. I had a long day and I got a lot of stuff in my mind. I need to not do this. And this guy was like, all right, man, no worries. We're good. We'll just pick this up tomorrow and before we go on the show. And that's what we did. So that's as simple as help as you can do. But sometimes a little more in depth than that.
Sometimes it's all it takes.
Sometimes, help needs to take a little bit more of a serious form. Sometimes people are in a bad place and they feel like harming themselves. And I would tell you, if you're one of those people, stop. Don't do that. Okay, you need to be here. You deserve to be here to pass on your wisdom, knowledge, and experience to the next generation. So
your friends and family deserve to have you here.
Yes, absolutely. If you feel like you're going to harm yourself, there's several methods, several ways you can reach out. You can dial the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255, 1-800-273-8255, or just dial TALK, 800-273 Alpha Lima Kilo, or you can dial 988. I say again, 988. You're going to contact either one of those. You're going to have to hit option 1. That's going to get you on the phone with a live operator, and they're going to help you as best they can. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I believe with the benefit of 988, you can also use that as a text recipient as well. So you can send text messages to them. I'm not 100% certain. Don't quote me, but I believe that is a possibility there. There are a lot of people who come home from war that have the type of injuries that are not visible to the naked eye or not visible on the outside of their body. They're here, wherever the case may be. So if you are of one of those, if you're, somebody that could need some help, reach out. I mean, that could take a lot of different forms. It could be a family member, a friend, it could be a coworker. Sometimes it's one of your buddies that you served with in the military. I never served with Alamo, but I know I can call him up and be like, hey dude, I'm not good. I need some help. And he's going to pick up the phone and he's going to freaking talk to me and be like, all right, dude, what we got to do? We're going to make it work. We're going to make the best of it. He's done that with me.
Sometimes I might ask, who do I got to kill?
That too. Usually that's not the case, but I'm glad you're thinking about it that way. Mark. So yeah, I mean, depending on what that help looks like, it could be a complete stranger. It could be somebody on the end of one of those phone numbers that we just mentioned. It could be somebody that knows. I find a good option with service members is somebody that knows what you've been through, that might have gone through some things with you, so they can kind of relate, and they might be able to share their path to healing or their path to improvement with you to help out a little bit, or just somebody that knows what you're going through, so you can bend an ear to them. So, um, help's important. We're not supposed to go through things alone. We are social creatures by design, by His grand design. Um, we should not go through things alone because it's not what we're meant to do. So, if if you need help, there are options out there. Reach out, get it, seek it, and it will come find you. Okay. So if you can remember those four things: be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need, you're going to have a pretty good chance of getting yourself right side up, righted, or on the path to in the right direction. So just remember those things, folks. Okay. I'm going to hand it off to Alamo. He's going to start doing the social media stuff, and then we will get out of here after that. So take it away.
If you would like to catch up with us on the social medias, we have multiple places you can do that. You can catch up with us at facebook.com/battlebros.podcast. You can also do that at the Insta, which is at battlebros_podcast. You can also catch us over on the X, aka or formerly known as Twitter, where we are sitting at Battle Bros PC. That is once again at Battle Bros PC. And drop us comments, drop us some show ideas that you'd like to hear about, maybe some subjects that you'd like to hear about. We are 100% here for it. We are 100% going to consider whatever you throw at us and see if we can find some good research on it. And I lost Mac. So also, if you guys would like to go ahead and catch up with us over on our private email, where you can actually contact us, say, for example, one of you guys ends up having a problem, you feel like you can't turn to family, you can't, and you don't want to call the suicide prevention hotline. We have an option for you to go ahead and email us, which is our battlebrospc@gmail.com. That is battlebrospc@gmail.com. Whether it's yourself, friend, family member, military buddy, all that good stuff. Go ahead, drop an email. We do check that email every week, so it's not going to go unanswered. Also, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, we also have multiple different options for you to be able to catch us, which one of them is the Spotify, one of them is iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. You can catch us on Google Podcasts and multiple different audio platforms. You can also catch us over on therumble.com, which I'm currently catching up on uploading episodes, that includes the Spotify, where you can catch us over at rumble.com and searching Battle Bros, all one word. That's right. Just search Battle Bros, all one word, and you'll be able to find every episode that we have uploaded on that platform. And again, like I said, leave a like, leave a comment on all the platforms you can, anywhere you can. You can do that on Spotify now. Spotify, you can actually leave comments on podcasts. Do that. You can do that over on YouTube. You can do that on Rumble. We're here for conversations. We're here for community, and we want to continue to do that. We want to build that community. So the more comments you leave, the more you interact with us, the better for everybody. And with that, I am Dunsky.
Sorry about that, dude. I was closing out some of the tabs I had open earlier, and I apparently clicked the StreamYard one. I was like, oh, shit. When I stopped hearing everything, I was like, oh, no. So,
how dare you?
Yeah, okay, whatever. Come from the guy who, never mind. So again, folks, that's the conversation for tonight. This has been episode 103 entitled Culture. Kind of went a little bit of a broader scope for the discussion tonight, kind of focused in on certain aspects of the discussion. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit the notification bell so you can understand and be informed as to when we are doing new episodes. We would love to hear your feedback. So, those different ways that you can reach out to us, please feel free to do so. But until the next time, this has been Mac and my co-host Alamo. Thank you so much for stopping by to join us tonight. We hope to see you down the road soon. Just remember, be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need. If you can do those, you're setting yourself up for success for the road. So we'll see you down the road, and we'll catch you soon.
Battle Bros out.